So many things you could talk about with the NFL on paper, but that's why you play the games. I was anticipating coming into week 2 having the Bears at 1-0 going into Denver to face off against their old defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, now the head coach of the Denver Broncos, anticipating them being 1-0. Instead, the Bears were bad offensively Thursday night, last week. They're 0-1. The Broncos went into Oakland and themselves kind of sort of laid an egg in the first half, losing to the Raiders. Now they're 0-1. So this game that had some intrigue and some interest already, especially from a Bears fan standpoint, looking at this and saying, hey, we think we can beat Green Bay, but it's that week 2 game against the old defensive coordinator in Denver that's got us concerned. Well, it had you concerned before. It's got you really worried. And if you're the Broncos, if you have any delusions at all of trying to hang around in the AFC playoff picture, you really don't want to start off 0-2 yourselves. So that's where we're at. Sunday, late afternoon game. The Chicago Bears at 0-1 travel to Denver to take on the 0-1 Broncos. And looking back at week number 1, the Bears' defense in that Thursday night game was spectacular. They held Aaron Rodgers to just a shade over 200 yards passing. They sacked him 5 times. That defense was everything that you could have hyped it up to be. The defense is legit. I don't think anybody would question at this moment, at least, that defense is Super Bowl worthy. That defense is certainly Super Bowl worthy. The problem is that offense is Bush League worthy. Trubisky was terrible and Nagy was worse. It has been interesting to me to see over the past week all of the changing of narratives and talking points from the Bears fan community when it comes to Trubisky. There was a lot of anticipating big, huge breakout seasons and a lot of anticipating he's going to show this year that he's the guy. And the reality is that he just hadn't shown you enough in the first 2 years for you to be able to confidently say that. And I'm still not saying the dude is flat out a bust. Part of that is because I've never been that high on Trubisky. That is well known and documented. I've always said I compare him to Andy Dalton. And for the Bears, especially with that defense, if he could just be a healthy Jim McMahon, he could be good enough for them to win a championship with. But now I see people on Bears Twitter talking about quarterbacks in the 2020 draft class, and my goodness, it's week 1. Can't overreact all the way. But I'm just wondering what's bringing everybody to the party and the table right now, all of a sudden. It took that loss? It's really bad. Trubisky is in year 3. You can only come up with the excuses of he needs more time so damn much, when in the same draft class you had Mahomes and Watson. Those excuses, and any Bears fans that continue to want to use those excuses, can kick rocks. Frankly. He's in year 3 now. Ain't got time for that. Dude still can't read a defense to save his damn life. And as far as Nagy goes, there's no excuse for that. You're the reigning coach of the year, even though it was primarily based off of the defense more than the offense. But your play calling was atrocious. You have a quarterback that's struggling to get in rhythm. So you decide the best way to get him in rhythm is by only calling 12 designated carries in the running game. That's going to work. And then trying to do slow kind of developing down the field passing plays with Trubisky when you need to do quicker fire, short tempo rhythm passing to try and get him involved. It was just as bad as Trubisky was last Thursday night. Nagy was far worse. It was horrible. And as far as the Broncos of week number 1, that's got to be viewed as a disappointing loss too. Now, granted, it was on the road against a divisional rival, but all the crap the Raiders have been dealing with the Antonio Brown saga leading up to week 1, and then the Broncos go out and they're down 14-0 in the first half. They just didn't come ready to play. They just never really got into a rhythm. They gave up 2 touchdown runs to the rookie, Josh Jacobs. They didn't get any pressure on Derek Carr to speak of. No sacks of Derek Carr. And Joe Flacco's first start, while statistically solid, was largely insignificant. Yes, Cortland Sutton had 7 catches for over 120 yards, but in the grand scheme of things, it's one of those things that the statistics don't really tell the story. You might have put up some yardage and stuff in the second half, but by then the game was already basically over. Looking ahead to this week 2 matchup now, your big storylines. Obviously, number 1 that's going to be called out here is Vic Fangio, the former defensive coordinator of the Chicago Bears, is now the Denver Broncos head coach. He knows the defensive personnel of the Bears very, very well. He knows the offense of the Bears very, very well. He knows the play calling of head coach Matt Nagy very, very well. And if anybody in the league is more well equipped to understand the strengths and specifically the weaknesses of Mitchell Trubisky, he can't be found because it's Vic Fangio. He knows better than anybody. So it's a very interesting subplot here. You've also got 2 teams at 0-1 trying to avoid that dreaded 0-2 start. Like if you can get through the first 2 weeks, and worst case scenario, you're 1-1, you feel like, hey, we got the taste of week 1 out of our mouths. We got a win. Now we've got some momentum. We're good. We're not too far behind the 8 ball. But you go 0-2, makes it a lot harder to make the playoffs. Looking at the keys to victory for Chicago, number 1, they've got to have a more consistent commitment to running the football. You can run on this Broncos defense a little bit. You can run on them a little bit. Matt Nagy, run the damn ball. And if you start off early running the ball a few times and it does not work, then you know what you do? You stay consistent in your commitment and you run the damn ball, Nagy. It's not that hard. They need to figure out offensively as well how to be able to scheme ways to get Trubisky into rhythm. Stop with the RPO crap and just call some designated bootlegs and some designated quarterback runs, some quarterback draws. If carrying and running the football helps to relax Trubisky, especially in this road game, then why wouldn't you do that? And then figure out ways. You want to do all these gimmicks and crap, well, let's figure out a way to gimmick Trubisky into some damn confidence. If he can't read the defense right now, let's figure out a better way to get him some more short and intermediate passes where he doesn't have to sit there and stare down his receiver for 4 seconds, because that's not going to end well. Just saying. And they need to get to Flacco early and often. They got 5 sacks on Rodgers. Jawan James, the right tackle of the Denver Broncos that they spent money on in free agency, isn't going to play in this game. So the Bears need to be able to go out there and get some pressure on Flacco early, get some pressure on him often, and disrupt the rhythm and timing of that Broncos offense. As far as the Denver Broncos, you got to start off defensively. Von Miller and Bradley Chubb combined for 0 sacks in week 1 against the Raiders. They need to be able to get some pressure on Trubisky. They have to be able to knock him on his ass a couple of times, really get in his face. You talk about a quarterback coming off that week 1 performance, you're really concerned from a confidence standpoint about the kid and how he's going to respond. Well, one way to feed into that lack of confidence and grow that lack of confidence is by getting in his face and getting up his ass. The other thing I would say from an offensive standpoint for the Broncos is get Noah Fant more involved in the passing game. The Bears can be just like a lot of other teams. You get those athletic tight ends over the middle of the field, and they can be a bit of a challenge to cover at times. And if you especially deploy Noah Fant correctly in your passing game, it might take Roquan Smith away from the line of scrimmage, which is probably going to be better suited for the Denver Broncos if they want to have some success. But Noah Fant, I think, had 2 catches for 20 yards in week 1. They took him in the first round to be an explosive option as a tight end. Flacco does best when he has a reliable tight end to throw to. This is the time to start working your tight end into the fold. And if you could do that, you can help balance out your offense and open things up on the outside for Cortland Sutton and Emmanuel Sanders if you're the Denver Broncos. I look at this game, and in a little ways, it's hard to know for me to know what to expect, because week 1 happened and both teams lost when I thought both teams would win, or could win. You've got the familiarity of Fangio, which you think, in theory, provides them an advantage. They're also playing at home, which should provide them an advantage. I just look at this, and I expect there to be a bit of a defensive battle here. I would be really surprised if it's a super duper high scoring game. For the Bears fans that are saying, well, all the crap, all the negativity everybody's saying about Trubisky in week 1, what happens if he balls out in week 2? We need to temper expectations and ground them in reality. Like, if you really look at it, in his now 31 starts in his career, 27 starts in his career, how many times has Trubisky really truly balled out? I'm not counting the other start. So if you want to count the playoff game, 28. He certainly didn't ball out there until very, very late. Like, how many times has Trubisky really truly balled out? Like, truly balled out. You could probably count him on one hand. So sitting there saying, well, what if he happens to ball out? What's a fluke and an aberration based off of the career track record? And he doesn't need to ball out. Just don't suck so bad. Matt Nagy doesn't have to be a mad genius as a play caller. Just don't suck so bad. Sometimes less is more. The old saying, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. And if you keep it simple, stupid, you can go into Denver and win this game. I think the Bears do that. I don't know if it'll be pretty. It could be tense and kind of butthole puckering, especially if you're a Bears fan. All the pressure and expectations coming into this season, thinking what this team could be. You're staring down the barrel of 0-2, and that's definitely a possibility. I think in a somewhat defensive battle, the Bears find a way to win 16-10, hopefully.